Welcome back to the channel. BYD has been making oh, here's a pheasant. Watch. Yeah, they're making waves in the electric car market across the globe. Well, except maybe in America where you can't buy them. But the Chinese automaker is doing rather well, and I've been wanting to get hold of one for a while. However, I was kind of hoping to get an electric one, and that might well still happen. But today, I'm actually driving the only non-fully electric BYD you can get. That is the BYD Seal U DMI, which is a plug-in hybrid. And I'm not entirely sure whether they were smoking over at the Chinese HQ of BYD when they came up with the name, because it's a very similar name to the BYD Seal, which is an electric car, and quite different in a lot of ways, but whatever. That's what it's called. Now, I'm not a big fan of plug-in hybrids. I've said this in other videos, I actually own a plug-in hybrid at the moment. I'm not really into them, to be honest, but there is a decent market for them at the moment, especially for people who are not really fully bought into EVs but want to get away from diesels and, yeah, try and dabble in the electric sort of powertrain side of things. So this is one of those, and it's a very, very affordable plug-in hybrid. So I want to answer some questions about this one. What compromises do BYD make for this to be so cheap compared to a lot of its rivals? And where does the money actually go? Because on the face of it, it looks like there's a few really good things about it. So if you're looking for a mid-size, compact-ish SUV and a plug-in hybrid, well, why would you pick this one? Well, if you want to find out, buckle up, let's get into it. So when cars have different names of trim, usually that means they have different amounts of kit in them. That is not the case with BYD's Seal U DMI. It is in fact the same across 3 different trims. So you've got the entry-level boost, then you've got the comfort, and then you've got this design. And the main differences are in performance and battery capacity. Otherwise, all the toys are the same across the range. And BYD are renowned for having a lot of toys. So I'm interested to explore that a bit further for you and see if that is in fact the case or if there's any missing. Spoiler alert, there is. So we'll come back to that. But what's this thing like out on the road? So with the boost, you've got front wheel drive and a smaller battery and a 1.5 naturally aspirated 4-cylinder petrol. If you go for the comfort, you get a slightly bigger battery, but everything else is pretty much the same. So you get more electric only range, obviously. And then if you go for this design top spec, you get a turbo petrol engine, same engine, and less range from the original battery. So this is the performance model, but how performance-y is it? Well, we'll discuss that in a bit. The things that are going to really matter with a car like this are going to be how comfy a cruiser it is. And I'm pleased to say that these seats are very comfortable actually, and they hug you quite well. So they are nice, really nice seats. That's a good start. But it wallows quite a lot in the bends. It's quite a high riding SUV, which is a good thing, but it definitely has quite a bit of body roll, and I feel when I go over some bumps, it's like woo, woo, like that. And so if you've got young kids in the back a lot, they might find that a little bit barf-tastic. Generally speaking, the handling in the corners is not very confidence inspiring. It's got quite a bit of understeer, and the body lean is there, and it's just not really that great. So it's not a driver's car, but I wouldn't expect it to be either at this price point or for the market it's really fishing in. So the steering in sport mode is a bit stiffer, but it's not very responsive at all. And around town, in comfort mode and eco mode, it will definitely be really easy to drive, but there's absolutely no fuel there whatsoever. So you do not have a particularly great package for spirited driving. So this car in top design spec has motors on both axles plus a turbo on the petrol engine, and it should give you about 320 brake horsepower and just over 400 newton meters of torque. Well, I think my issue here is simply that I find the performance is a little bit inconsistent when I put my foot down. There's quite a lot of lag there when you put your foot down for one, and that's something I gripe about with all plug-in hybrids, and one of the reasons why I don't want to ever have another one, because I don't like two powertrains having to work together and go, you know, when's one coming in, when's one not, you know, I'm not a big fan of that, but that's but by the by, I just think this thing takes a little bit of a while to really get going, even in sport mode. And sometimes it feels like it depends at what speed you're going at already when you ask for more power as to how responsive it is. So it isn't very consistent, and sometimes it just does not feel like it's got anywhere near the horsepower that it says it does. And other times I'm like, oh yeah, that felt quite sprightly, so I'm a little bit confused, to be honest. Now this top spec one is meant to do 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds, but is that for real? Well, unfortunately my timing gear isn't working right now, so I've got a cunning backup plan, which is a stopwatch. So I'm going to use that to try and give you an accurate, as close to accurate as I can time for this. So let's do it. .12. That is not very good, is it? Interestingly, the power band was really not very linear. It got to about 50 miles an hour and it kind of stuttered before it got to 60, so I definitely think it lost quite a bit of the acceleration in that last sort of 10 miles an hour. So yeah, not ideal. The refinement's all right though. It's not like, you know, an Audi, but it's definitely quiet enough. You know, 60 miles an hour, dodgy roads. I'm not hearing major intrusion in the cabin. You know, I think you can have a good conversation with your passengers. There's a little bit of wind noise coming from around the A-pillars and a little bit of tyre noise, but it's okay. And so refinement wise, I'm happy enough. But the good thing is, with this suspension being a bit wallowy, is it is pretty good at absorbing the bumps. And so around town, which is where plug-in hybrids a lot of time could really be quite a good powertrain to have, it'll probably do really well. I'm not really finding an awful lot of like jumping about, you know, it feels fairly good at dealing with all the imperfections of our rubbish roads. So I'm happy enough with that. But the trade-off is, yeah, it doesn't handle very good. Interestingly, this plug-in hybrid has quite a different gearbox to a lot of its rivals. So, you know, Hyundai, Kia, you'll get a dual clutch. In a Toyota product, like the RAV4, you'll get an ECVT. So everybody does things differently. This one has a single gear for the electric motor, one for the petrol engine, and a reduction gear as well. Don't ask me to explain technically how that all works, because I haven't got a blooming clue, but it's a very different setup. But overall, I don't think I notice it any different to any other gearbox. It's just that little bit of lag when you put your foot down, which, to be fair, most of them have as well. Visibility is a bit of a mixed bag. Interior mirror's got a bit of a bezel on it. It's not terribly thick, but I would like to see just a frameless mirror, thanks. Everybody else seems to be able to do it. The wing mirrors are a decent size, so they're good, but the visibility out the back window is pretty small. It's quite a narrow window. And so yeah, thankfully you've got really high resolution cameras on this car, because it could be a little bit disconcerting when you go to park it based on that back window. But other than that, all good. We've also got a really good head-up display. Really big font on it and good information in there, and yeah, I really like a head-up display as long as I'm not wearing polarized sunglasses. But these seats, I really do like them. They're properly comfortable and they're heated and ventilated and electric with memory on both front passenger seats. But there's one catch, which would be a bigger catch if it wasn't for the fact that I like quite a bit of lumbar support, and it seems to have a decent amount built into the seat as standard, but there is no adjustable lumbar support on these seats. And for a car that touts being like high spec and giving you loads of toys, that is shocking. Really, you know, to have ventilation in your seats but still not have lumbar support. What on earth were BYD doing there? That is definitely an area where I'm thinking it must be just a little bit more expensive to design these seats with that being adjustable, and so they've just decided to cut that corner. And that is a real shame. In terms of my driving position, I can put my elbows down both sides, which I really like when I'm driving. I don't want to, you know, not have them resting on something, and the elbow points are fairly soft, so it's pretty good. The steering wheel feels nice in the hands. It's got lovely physical buttons as well that are quite nicely damped, so well done on that. So yeah, the whole driving position thing just feels pretty good. I like the thickness of the steering wheel too. It doesn't feel particularly expensive, but it's nice to hold still. Just generally think for long journeys, this is quite a comfortable place to be. But this car has, in this top spec, 43 miles of electric only range, which compared to the lower spec is actually quite a bit lower, but it's still a decent amount of range. And the car is encouraging you to drive an electric only range as much as possible. So a lot of cars, it feels like you've got a petrol engine supplemented by an electric motor. Certainly the earlier plug-in hybrids felt like that. I feel like now they're getting to a point where it's like, which is the bigger fish in the pond, you know, and the more electric range you can have, the more that becomes kind of the priority of the car. And it feels like this car, the petrol engine, is the backup system, if you know what I mean. So what are the competitors for this car? Well, there's a few plug-in hybrids that are roughly the same size, you know, SUVs that are either front wheel or all-wheel drive and offer anywhere from sort of 30 to 60 miles of range. Hyundai Tucson, have reviewed that in non-plug-in hybrid version. You can get the Kia Niro, the Ford Kuga, the Volkswagen Tiguan. But I think the main competitor for this one is going to probably be the MG HS, because it's also Chinese made and a lot cheaper than the rest of them. And so if you're comparing apples for apples in terms of price to what you get ratio, I think that's probably the best one to compare against. So I always call out cars that have annoying safety tech that's really annoying to switch off more to the point. So if you don't want to hear me rant about this again, maybe fast forward this part of the video, but gotta call balls and strikes here. Switching off lane keep and the chime when you go over the speed limit, which is always on when you get in the car, is absolutely ridiculous in this car. I cannot believe how many button presses in the touchscreen I have to make to actually switch those off. Honestly, I'm losing the will to live with this. I think this is a reason why I'm going to just buy older cars again. I really am struggling with this one. I cannot be bothered with this every time I get in a car having to switch off these systems that I do not find actually make me safer when they're on, and ironically feel very unsafe to actually switch them off. I mean, really, the amount of distraction on the touchscreen to actually switch these off, surely that is a net negative. Now, I've watched a couple of videos about this car. People have said that the looks were very vanilla. I have to say I kind of agree with that. You know, I don't like to talk too much about the looks of the car, but it does feel a bit gangly looking. It's quite high riding, but the bottom part of the grille just makes it look like it's very high off the ground, almost like an ostrich or something. I'm not really sure looks wise I'm particularly wowed by it, particularly from the front. From the back, a bit more so, and the side profile's not too bad, but it isn't really a car that I'm going, wowzers, that's a looker, you know. But this classic car, I'm thinking about all its rivals, and to be honest, I don't find any of them all that handsome, so not really that bothered about that point. But what I do love about BYD is it's just so easy to shop for one online, you know. You just go on and it's so easy to pick the car you want. There's just not loads of options, and the Asian market, they're way better at that. You know, it's not like the Germans where it's so complicated to figure out the options. I love the fact that it's just like, there are your specs and these are the differences. They're very easy to understand. Get on with it and buy one. Now, before I open the boot of the CLU DMI, just wanted to call out the exposed rear view camera, which is, you know, the same in just about every other car. Very few of them actually have a system that tucks it away, so you're just gonna have to clean it a lot, but it is high res at least. When we open the boot, which is obviously a power tailgate, it's not the biggest boot in the class. The biggest is the Kia Sportage plug-in hybrid technically, and also the MG HS is actually bigger as well. But 425 litres with the seats up, 1440 with the seats down. To put them down, you have to go around the side and pull a wee lever on each side, which isn't ideal, but when they do go down, it really depends what position you've got this floor in for it to be a flat load bay or not and have no load lip or not. This is in the lower setting, which is obviously giving you a little bit more depth, but it means you've got this lip, and when you throw stuff in long ways, it's going to hit that lip as well. No underfloor storage, so yeah, your cables, they have to sit at the side there, which is really annoying. Really don't understand that one, but yep, there's nowhere to put them, so that's a bit of a fail. And it's also 60-40 split folding seats, not 40-20-40, which is definitely way more useful if you've got a couple of kids in the back, you want to put that middle seat down and get something long through. It's a bit short on the tie down points though, there's not really many that I can see. Got this cubby at the side here, this retractable load cover is kind of cool as well. But it's a decent enough sized boot, but there's a lot bigger boots you can get if you really need to cart a load of stuff about. So this is not necessarily going to do families that have huge amounts of stuff to cart on a holiday, but hey, you can always get a tow bar and stick something on there or get a roof box. Otherwise, it is still quite a nice square shape, so it's got that. Okay, so if we're talking about the things that this car does well, the practicality for rear passengers is definitely up there. Knee room is excellent. My seat's in my driving position. I'm 5'9", and I've got loads of knee room. Toe room could be better, but then I could probably put the seat up a little bit. Headroom is pretty decent as well. You can actually recline the seats a little bit, so that will help for taller passengers. And you also find these seats to be really quite comfortable as well, just like the front. It's not super wide. I wouldn't expect this class of car to be anyway, but this middle passenger is not going to have a particularly short-changed experience. It's pretty flat and still quite soft, but you've got absolutely no transmission tunnel, so that's a real Brucey bonus. And so 3 sets of legs will sit really comfortably there. You've got this center armrest, and it's really soft and squidgy, although you could put your elbow into the cup holders, but these cup holders have the right depth. They've got teeth on them as well, love that. And Isofix and R2 seats, really easy to get to. Don't know why they're not all like that, you know, just perfect. Door bins, quite small, but you'll get a ball in there. They're very plasticky though, so stuff will rattle about. You have got some nice pockets in the back of the seats. Pan roof lets loads of light in the cabin, goes all the way back, it's fantastic. And the windows go all the way down as well. Air vents in the middle and a couple of USB-Cs and a little cubby at the bottom there. Overall, I think for 2 people, long journeys, this is a very, very comfortable place, and 3 people will not be too bad either. Okay, up front in the BYD CLU DMI. Gee, that's a real mouthful. Let's try the door close, see what the quality's like. That's pretty good actually. Quite happy with that. It's not quite up there with like an Audi Q7, you know, where I'm like telling everybody about it later on. But it's a pretty good door close and a decent sign of quality. Otherwise, it's pretty good for soft touches. Soft up here, not that you really touch there, but it is. Elbow points are excellent. Soft around here. It feels really sturdy and well built. The door, handles, everything, pretty good quality. It's just really down by the door bins where it starts to feel a little bit plasticky and flimsy. There's a little bit of piano black in here, but not absolutely masses of it. You've got some on the doors here, and then you've got some above the glove box, which if your kids are riding shotgun, they put their feet up, that could be a bit of a problem. And there's a little bit on these plastic buttons in the center console, and a couple of these bits are just like one-piece plastic, which is always a bit of a sign of a cost-cutting exercise, but I wouldn't say they've overdone it with the piano black, so I'm happy with that. As I said in the driving segment, the steering wheel is pretty nice, and these buttons feel really nicely damped, so I'm well impressed with those. There's no sort of one-piece plastic nonsense going on, which you get in blooming Audis now. But yeah, I just think they've laid these out, got the right sort of functionality. All of that is very, very good. Yeah, the steering wheel just looks really quite premium, so I'm pretty happy with all of that. But like in a Tesla, the infotainment system is a key sort of focal point of the car, and obviously they've copied Tesla a little bit with this whole massive infotainment touchscreen in the middle. But they've added a party trick that you can actually turn it round, and yep, you can go from portrait to landscape and back. I definitely think it looks better in landscape, to be honest, but whatever, it's up to you. I'm sure the kids will love that for a wee play initially, but it's a bit gimmicky, but it's still cool that it can do that, and you've got a bit more flexibility about how you want your infotainment system to physically look. But I do like this infotainment system overall. It's very responsive, and so as far as that goes, it's one of the best I've seen. And the graphics are clear, you know, it's reasonably intuitive in terms of its layout. Every infotainment system takes a little while to get used to, but I would say this one is pretty good for that. You've got some really big buttons for certain features as well. So that's all good, but this does have something that you will not get any Tesla, and that is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And it's got lots of apps, and they're wireless as well. So functionality wise, it's really good. The voice control system's a bit hit and miss, but then again, which cars isn't? You can do things like closing the blind on the panoramic sunroof through voice control. So it's got some little cool quirks like that, you know, and just generally I think this infotainment system is pretty good. This digital cockpit's also decent as well. It's not as customizable as I thought it might be unless I'm missing something, but all the information you want is there. So yeah, I've got no complaints about that. It's nice and colourful too. And if you put that with your big head-up display, you've got a lot of good information being fed to you. One thing that I will call out, and it's not a big criticism, but this is not a driver-centric cockpit. I want all my infotainment and everything to face me, and it really doesn't in this car, which is a real shame, but that is just the way it is with many cars. You know, it's neutral and it saves cost as well to not have to redesign things for both left and right-hand drive cars. And with this rotating infotainment screen, yeah, I get why that might be a bit more difficult to do as well. So it's not a big deal, but I just find a screen like that, when it's facing in the middle, it just feels like a slightly smaller screen than it actually is. So if it's facing me, it would feel a bit more immersive and bigger as well. So not ideal, but not a big problem. This center console though, you've got this dinky gear selector, which is a proper little, you know, when you use your fingers on, you've got a few shortcut buttons, which I do like to see, feel pretty nice. Plasticky buttons below though that are basically just like one sheet of plastic. Not a big fan of that. Thankfully they didn't do that on the steering wheel. But yeah, it's okay, but at least you've got some shortcut buttons, and otherwise the air conditioning stuff, all that, mostly is in the touchscreen, which isn't ideal. The cubby side of things is interesting as well. And in fact, I think it's blimmin' brilliant. First of all, you've got this massive bit in the middle, just like in my Tesla. You get your whole arm in there. That's huge. Two cup holders that have got adaptive teeth on them, decent depth as well, hold my bottle pretty good. You can also put it in the door. Plasticky though, so things will rattle about. There's no felt lining or anything like that. Massive bit at the front for a couple of phones to sit beside each other and be wirelessly charged, so that's good. Sunglasses holder, happy days, don't see that too often. The glove box is an okay size, but the really great thing is you've got this floating console and a lot of space underneath, and you've got a couple of USB points there as well. So I think they've got the whole cubby side of things top notch. But aside from the lumbar support being missing and not even being an option, which I really do not like, there is one other feature this car is missing from a car that's meant to be all about having all the toys. And I'm not going to reel off all the toys because they're the same across the range and you can easily get that information online. I'll leave a link to that. But basically, it has just about everything I can think of except for matrix LED headlights. And it seems like you cannot get that on any BYD product at the moment at all. And that's a real shame because I would probably not buy a BYD Seal over that point. I really, really want to have that in my cars because I drive on country roads at night a lot. Love, you know, the beams being danced around oncoming traffic. It's a lot better than high beam assist, which this car has. And so I just think BYD, for all your techiness, you're kind of falling behind the pace there with that one. You also get the Infinity branded sound system across the range, and it's got 10 speakers and a sub, and it sounds not bad. I wouldn't say it's as good as like the standard sound system in my Tesla, but it's got a bit more to it than some stock stereos you'll get in a lot of cars. So if you're not a major audiophile, you'll probably appreciate it. Something I've not had a chance to try out has been the adaptive cruise control, but I have heard from other people that it's not amazing and could be a little bit jerky. So definitely something to maybe check out on a test drive if you get this car, because unfortunately I never got a chance. But back to the charging side of things. I mean, for plug-in hybrids, I would never say that using the fast chargers on the move is going to be that worthwhile. Just charge it at home and, you know, see how far you get with that. But essentially it's maxed at 18 kilowatts, so you're going to struggle to get the best out of a lot of the DC chargers. But its AC charging is 11 kilowatts, which is actually probably more than most home chargers can manage. They're usually 7 kilowatts, so you might never get the full potential of that. But for information, a full charge from zero on a 7 kilowatts is going to take about 3.5 hours. So you can imagine if it's up to 11 kilowatts, it's going to be quite a bit less than that. But yeah, just plug it in overnight and you'll be fine. But BYD, Build Your Dreams, are still trying to make their mark in the world. And so they have to offer a few perks to really kind of incentivize people to go with them. And one of them is a 6-year warranty standard, or up to 93 and a bit thousand miles, whatever comes first. But your battery has an 8-year warranty and 125,000 miles, whatever comes first. So that is really good and way better than you're going to get from the likes of a Volkswagen Tiguan. So I guess we should finish talking about the price, because that's really the kicker here, is that this car is unbelievably well priced, as are a lot of Chinese products. You can get one of these for just over 31 grand. And if you go up to this top spec, you're just over 40 grand on the road, which is really not bad considering all the things this car's got, you know. As long as you're not looking for a really driving enthusiast type car, I think it's got a lot of other things that it does offer well. The comfort, the practicality, and the infotainment system. General quality feels better than the price point. So overall, I think this is a car that if you potter around town, you've got a way of charging it overnight, definitely take a look at this as a plug-in hybrid, because it has got quite a few things that I think it does better than its other rivals for the price. So yeah, that's my thoughts, guys. I would love to know yours in the comments, so please do leave me one if you enjoyed the video. Please give it a like, share, and don't forget to subscribe as well. I really appreciate everybody that interacts with my videos and watches them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.